Welcome to Calw, a town of about 23,000 residents in the northern Black Forest. The earliest verified mention of Calw was around 1075 as Calw. Calw was established in the 11th century around Hirsau Cloister, a neighboring abbey. In the early years, Calw was a trading town particularly important for cloth and leather. Even today, some evidence of this remains via one of the historic Old Town's area names, Lederpassage, literally, leather passage. As you wander through the old part of the town, you may be overwhelmed by the large number of timber-framed or fachwerk houses that still stand. Many of the businesses also installed traditional signs outside their doors to add to this town's charm. For those with an inclination toward shopping, there are a nice variety of stores. Various clothing stores are available for standard fashion. There is a lovely fabric and yarn shop with friendly staff for those who are more craft-oriented. A more unusual shop is the bookbinder. I have brought in a few 19th century books to rebind and they did a wonderful job. I can highly recommend them. There are also handmade gifts to purchase such as journals and art books. If you are interested in antiques, there is a small shop with an eclectic selection. The shop is generally affordable and includes everything from old media to household knickknacks. After all that shopping, give the kids a break and take them to the playground. You can kick up your feet while lounging on a bench with a view of the Nagold River. If you are lucky, you will see one of the local swans swim by. Calw's golden child is the revered author Hermann Hesse. Born in Calw in 1877, he spent most of his youth there. Hesse was a prolific writer from the turn of the 20th century through the 1920s. During the height of his popularity, he was not very well known in America. Two of his most famous works, Siddhartha and Steppenwolf, dealt with mysticism and spirituality. His works gained traction in America in the 1960s and 70s with the counterculture movement. The rock band Steppenwolf named themselves after his novel. In the 1970s, some of his books were turned into more artistic films. At the time of recording this clip, the Hermann Hesse Museum is undergoing extensive renovations. They are supposed to reopen in 2024. To compensate, many of the exhibits have been shifted to other museums around Calw. There is a statue of Hesse by the Nagold River and a depiction of the vagabond Knulp, one of Hesse's popular characters. Some of Hesse's books are available for free on archive.org and Project Gutenberg. For a nice tour, check out the Hermann Hesse Weg. Starting at the Hermann Hesse Museum, there are 37 columns along the path which takes you through the historic center and to the city garden. The various steles contain quotations from Hesse's works as you walk in the author's footsteps through his beloved home. There is the Gerberei Museum on Lederstrasse, translated to Leather Street. This tannery museum holds numerous displays about the process of tanning and the trade in the region. The museum, like many in Calw, is seasonal and closed during the winter months. One can only imagine how this street used to smell, since tanneries were notorious for stinking and were generally placed on the outskirts of towns, not in the middle. However, Calw had 20 to 30 tanneries at one point, so odds are the residents were so used to the smell they really didn't notice. The Palais Vischa was built in the late 18th century, and many of the rooms have been returned to their original style. The town's Heimat Museum is housed there, with local history as the focus. Currently, the museum has 2 rooms devoted to Hermann Hesse's novel Steppenwolf. This is part of the effort to make the Hesse Museum's exhibits available while it undergoes renovations. Der Lange is the only remaining tower of the town's medieval fortifications. The tower also housed 3 prisons, one on each of the 3 floors. The attached 3-story house was another prison. The tower currently maintains a display of the medieval history of the town and gives a bird's-eye view over Calw.
Was soll das Getöse hier drin?
Let me out!
Nein.
I'm innocent, I swear! If German military history is more your thing, Calw houses 3 special forces companies. Don't worry, I'm not giving away any state secrets, this is public knowledge. There used to be 4 companies in Calw for the Kommando Spezialkräfte, but a right-wing scandal struck in 2018 which led to the removal of 1 unit. In an effort to repair the damage to their reputation and promote more transparency, the KSK recently opened a small museum outlining who they are and what they do. Formed in 1996, the KSK has been essential in joint efforts of NATO in various operations. In the museum, you can see some of their equipment and learn of their history. Interested in Black Forest farm life in the 19th century? Check out the Bauernhaus Museum. This well-maintained farmhouse from 1813 includes a cowshed and schnapps distillery in addition to the furnished house. It is open the first Sunday of the month from 2 to 5. Pop over to the abbey mentioned at the beginning of this clip. Kloster Hirsau was a major religious center in Germany in the Middle Ages. There is a record of St. Aurelius's bones being transported to the St. Nazarius Chapel in 830. Nothing remains of this early chapel. The earliest remaining building, St. Aurelius II, began construction in 1059. By this time, there was a Benedictine monastery established. This remained until the Württemberg Reformation in 1555. The monastery was dissolved and many parts of the buildings were demolished over the next few decades. The main hall was later used as a stable, barns, sports hall, and garage at various times. The largest structure, St. Peter and Paul, large enough to be shared by 2 saints, was first constructed in the 11th century and building continued until the middle of the 12th century. In the 15th century, some of the early Romanesque buildings were demolished and new Gothic ones were added. At the end of the 17th century, most of the structures fell to fire during the 9 Years' War, one of the many conflicts between the French and the Germans. By the early 19th century, most of the buildings were falling apart. The only building which remained intact was the Marienkapelle. In the late 19th century, it was renovated in a neo-Gothic style. The other structure which remained intact was the Northwest Tower. Built around 1120, this was maintained for centuries as a local jail. Behind St. Aurelius is a cloister garden. It is designed based on the medieval herb gardens and contains about 50 different types of plants. The Cloister Museum was opened in 1991. The grounds, including the religious buildings, are open all year for wandering through. The museum is open from April until October. After a small walk through the forest, you come across the Calwer Schafott. Convicted witches, child murderers, and other criminals were hung at the gallows, beheaded at the market square, or here. The last execution was of the murderer Gertrude Pfeiflin in 1818. I don't want to ruin the story by telling it here. Instead, take a hike in the woods. Then you can find out all the gruesome details for yourself. Where to finish off with a treat here? We have our regular table at the Zena Bakery in the market area. Calw is a lovely town to wander through and explore. See you there, see you everywhere.